Hello, welcome to Relatively Ordinary. I'm Betsy.
I'm Karl.
And we're here today to talk about some fun stuff. It's a topic I'm very excited about. And
Nice.
Karl has no idea. That's
Nice.
how this show works.
She printed
right?
up notes.
I did research.
Yeah.
I'm good at that.
You brought weekend energy on a weeknight, so I commend you for that.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I had a
good.
good weekend. So,
Yeah.
and I
Nice.
slept well last night.
Nice. What, anything you want to share about your weekend?
Well, I ran in a relay race. It was a relay marathon. So I did a leg that was 8.8 miles. And last year I ran the same relay race, a shorter leg with significant pain. And then I had to take a hiatus from running. One of the longest in my adult life.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sobering because I use running for my mental health and wellness, physical health, etc. And I'm going to promote my own profession. I had to see a physical therapist who
Turns
did
out
some.
those PTs know what they're talking about.
I know, and he did some amazing work, and I was able to get out there and run one of my best races ever. So,
Yeah. Shout out to Steady State.
yeah. So that was really exciting. Yeah, Steady State is thebomb.com.
Nice.
So yeah, that was my weekend. How about yours?
I didn't run primarily because I was on a boat most of the time.
That would be not very exciting,
Yep.
maybe even dangerous.
Yep. We had, I want to say smooth sailing, but there was zero wind to be had. So there was zero sailing to be done. So we just putted along under motor
Put.
at about 5 knots for, 12 hours.
Can you make sense of what 5 knots means for those who aren't sailors?
It means if you're trying to go from Belfast to Bristol, it's going to take a long freaking time. That's what it means.
It's slow.
Yeah.
It's slow.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great weekend, beautiful weather. And, our state, it's beautiful from the land, it's beautiful from the water. So
Yeah. Cool.
We're lucky to live here. So
Yeah, sounds really nice.
Yeah. So
we're invigorated.
Yeah. So bringing weekend energy on a Monday. So I have a question to kick us off.
Okay.
But before I get there,
Yep.
I am going to tell a quick story that has nothing to do with the question.
Okay.
You'll understand why in a second.
Sure.
So when I was in high school, my first chance to pitch in a varsity baseball game, I was brought in on a game. We were playing the best team in the state in our class, and they were kicking the crap out of us. And they had 2 players that were already committed to D1 schools, really good players.
Okay.
And so I'm in this game, and I was playing third base or something, and our pitcher's getting shelled. And my coach comes out, and he looks at me. He's like, "Karl, you going in?"
All right.
And I'm
time
like,
to step up.
"Oh, this is my moment. I can finally show off that curveball."
Okay.
So I'm psyched. I feel ready for it. I get on the mound, I go through my warm-ups, and then before I get to pitch, my coach comes out and he says, "Just throw goddamn strikes." And I don't know, maybe he didn't say goddamn because he was kind of he wasn't a profane guy, but he had that way of he could grunt at you and it was a swear.
Yeah, you know how to interpret that.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily need to say dirty words to let you know that you effed up.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to throw strikes. Well, first pitch was a strike, the outside corner, fastball.
Sweet.
Second pitch was...
Wow, you have this nailed down. You could write
Second pitch
a book
was
on this.
Hit off the top of the fence for a bases clearing double.
Ooh.
So that was the second best player in the state. And then the best player in the state was the next hitter up.
Okay.
And I threw a first pitch fastball to him, and he hit it about 480 feet for a home run.
Oh.
And then my coach pulled me out.
Oh, no.
Right? I'm like, I did what you asked.
So you landed
I threw strikes. I threw strikes.
Face, yeah.
But anyway, that was Coach Dave Shea,
Okay.
a Colchester, Connecticut Bacon Academy legend, and he passed away this past week. He was a great guy, great
sorry.
coach. That memory always cracks me up because he was always really good to me, and he was always a good coach. And that was one time where I was kind of like, "Come on, coach," but it also was just kind of his nature. He was like a pillar of the community and a great basketball coach, even better basketball coach than baseball coach, and really good guy. So rest in peace, Dave Shea, Coach Shea.
All
Good,
right.
good dude.
Yeah. He had an impact on you and probably many others.
Passed away in 91. Long,
wow.
full life.
I hope that's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, so that was my had to throw that in there, just a quick shout out. But I do have a question for you.
Okay.
And the question is,
have I ever bombed when put on the spot?
What is something that you thought that you were going to be good at, and then it turns out you really weren't good at? And that could either be something you thought like going into it you're going to do great, and then you didn't, which kind of is to what you just said. Or like maybe as a kid you're like, I'm going to be good at that when I'm an adult, and you get to be an adult and you're like, nah.
For the record, I'm good at everything.
Yeah. Humility is your thing.
Yes,
I see that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh. You know, for a while when I was younger, I mean, I had all sorts of passions, but I honestly thought I was a pretty good dancer and gymnast, even though I had like no reason to believe that. I did gymnastics like once when I was 5 and never did any formal dance training. But I love to put on my mom's tapes and CDs. Yep, that's how old I am, and dance in the living room and put on performances. And I did my time in show choir and did some performances, but I wouldn't say I'm the worst, but I certainly could not make a profession out of it.
Yeah.
So that comes to mind pretty quickly. I think I know myself well enough, though, that I try to avoid putting myself in the spotlight if I know I'm going to tank. And, you know, I think that's self-preservation.
That's wisdom right there.
Yeah, that's wisdom. But that's probably, I don't know. I'm guessing yours was pitching, but you pitched now. So that was one example that it didn't go your way.
I kind of knew how not good of a pitcher I was. I just figured I could be an effective high school pitcher. And
well, that was a very competitive,
I had my
game.
Moments, but like that wasn't one of them.
Well, right now in your, what is it, the
old man baseball
30+ league, you're
35,
dominating
35 plus.
Whoa, yes, you're dominating as a pitcher.
We don't let those young 30-year-old kids get in there.
And you like rehab, back to PT, you rehab that shoulder, and now you dominate.
Dominate is not the word, but occasionally effective is.
No one would have known.
Yeah.
No one would have been the wiser.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, cool. Way to kick us off. All right, so for those who are listening for the first time, and that might be everyone, I do have humility. See, our show is about taking big issues, or typically big issues, or important issues, or present issues of our day or weeks, and filtering them through 3 lenses: society at large, our community, and within our households. And I'm very excited about today's topic because I think it's something you would like to talk about. We have discussed a little bit, but I have some probing questions.
Oh boy.
So I'm curious your thoughts. So, you ready?
All right, let's dive in.
And I know several things have inspired this. And I don't know, we'll explore it, see where it takes us. And I'm hoping to plant the seed that there might be a future episode on a similar but somewhat opposing topic.
You can't tease this
I'm
anymore.
burying.
Just
okay.
Get to the question.
All right. So the topic is, what does it mean to be male today? Okay. So I got a little background to ready us.
Yeah.
Okay. So conversations about gender often center around women these days, their safety, their rights, and their representation. I mean, it's forefront on many issues, and for good reason. Women in the U.S. are twice as likely to experience sexual harassment or violence, and over 90% of sexual predators are male. We've seen ongoing attacks on the access to reproductive health. Women remain the minority in the 10 highest paying career fields. And the gender pay gap still exists, with women earning about 82 cents for every dollar earned by men. At the same time, though, men are feeling villainized. Boys are growing up in a confusing society, one that challenges traditional ideas of masculinity, and they're often left feeling defensive about a culture they didn't directly create. The very norms that once defined being a man, strength, stoicism, self-reliance, things that even I would say, define what I expect out of a male role, right? Can now isolate and harm. So we want a little bit of everything, right? At least society is expecting certain things, and repressing others, and it's hard to be both, right? Rates of depression, loneliness, and suicide among men are climbing, and many are struggling to find a healthy balance between strength and vulnerability. So let's start with the society level. When you think about what it means to be a man in our society today, what messages do you think men are receiving, both the healthy and the harmful ones? And how do those messages impact things like mental health, vulnerability, and connection?
It's a great topic. Yeah. So a lot to digest there. I guess. So your question was, what messages do men receive?
Yeah.
And I assume you kind of mean like,
if we start
from
with
society and our culture and expectations. Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely, I really relate with what you said in the kind of introduction of the topic of like men finding themselves, and especially young men, like the way you put it, with the like inheriting a culture that they didn't create. I do think it's very difficult to try to walk the line of like, I'm a man and identify with masculine things. And it's like the stoicism and strength and whatever the other quality you had on there were like, those are good things, right? Those are good qualities to have. And I think that,
self-reliance
was the other, yeah. And, it's not that a man can only do those things, right? But you think of the yin and the yang and sort of traditional roles in our culture and others, that masculine energy it's a good thing, and it can be a good thing. But I think you need to balance that with a respect for those who are more vulnerable than you in any situation or a situation. And also the fact that reality is you are vulnerable too, and we're all just
human.
We're meat, right? Like we're like, we all are, we're very mortal. Like things happen, our mortality is threatened on a regular basis, whether we know it or not.
Well, that's sobering. We're meat. Do you think we're yummy meat?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, good thing we got rid of like the big animals that eat us, because believe me, if our house cat was 200 pounds,
we'd be done.
We would be dead already. But yeah, I mean, I think it's. So to go back to like the question around messages.
Yeah, what messages do you, and think about yourself, like what messages do you receive? And I think a lot of the messages you probably receive are similar in their harmful effects as they are for women. If we think about advertising, if we think about
there's a
domestic
lot of like,
roles and
like being big and strong and, like driving a bigger truck and, and stuff like that. And I guess I, for a long time, have been sort of like comfortable in my own skin as far as like, I'm not a UFC fighter or a NFL player. Like I'm not like that level of like masculine, giant, ripped dude, like square jaw guy. Right.
It does have some definition though. It's nice.
And I'm also like, I also still am like, fairly, I'm hairy and I play sports and
very,
so it's like
very to the hairy.
Like I've never like, I shouldn't say never. When I was a young man, I probably felt a lot of insecurity at times about like how manly am I and like what it means, and it's like,
and
think about
what the future holds.
Like the messages that people get in all sorts of cultures and subcultures around like, sexual conquest and like, the amount of money you make, or like how dominant you are, even like in their like friend group. It's like kids, they have like, this whole like alpha sigma thing now, which is kind of funny, because it's like there's a grain of truth in it, but it's also, it's like, if you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm not the alpha and I'm not the sigma, so I must be the beta. And that's like, I think the most toxic message that young people are getting.
Can
right
you
now.
interpret what those mean for
well,
our
it's
audience?
it's like, I mean, it's like dumbass like hypermasculinity stuff, right? And again, there's a grain of truth to it. Like there's a certain amount of like, it is a useful metaphor for certain things. So an alpha is the alpha wolf. So like if you have a group, there's like one alpha and there's no other alphas. Like
there can only be
someone
one.
Challenges the alpha and the alpha puts them down, or they overtake them and they're the alpha, right? And then the Sigma is like the lone wolf. So they're like too cool for school. You know, they don't need a pack to run with.
They stand alone.
And, you know, we can get to like what that means in a second. And then there's betas, and betas are the like, you know, the inferior wolves in the pack. And I think there's this thing, and, you know, I am taking like grains of things that I've heard from like my son and his friends and trying to like interpret it. I am not an expert on this, but like there seems to be this thing with young people today where like, you know, some people are the alpha, and it's not like we imagine like sometimes like the alpha's just a dick, right? But sometimes
they are.
Yeah, but sometimes the alpha is just like cool as hell, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, like, you know, when you're a guy, it's like sometimes you just hang around with like a guy and you're like, you are literally good at everything, and I'm kind of jealous of you, but you're also a good guy, so like I just love hanging out with you.
That's
right.
That's when that's a good thing.
Yeah, and then there's other times where you're hanging out with different people, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm the cool guy in the group, you know. But the Sigma thing is like, you know, I don't need a pack to run with, and I think that there's, you know, this thing where it's like, yeah, it's cool to be like, you know, the Clint Eastwood, like I'm self-reliant, I don't need anyone, but also like it's very isolating.
Yes.
You know, if you're saying I don't have a role in a pack and I don't need a pack, well, what does that mean? You're just off on your own. You know, and
that can have difficulties.
Yeah, I think that is, to go back to like the strength, stoicism, self-reliance thing. All of those things are good, but it's like there's a slider, and there's like a you know, you go too far in one direction and it's too much. You know, like there's such a thing as being too stoic, right? Or too just, you know, I don't even think it's strength, but like when you're just like, I'm gonna grin and bear it no matter how terrible it gets, and like, you know, very few people can just like power through everything and not need help.
Yeah. And I think that's where, you know, messaging makes it difficult to reach out for support, to want help, to show, you know, we've been using this word vulnerability, but to, you know, show a side where you're needing support, but also to give it, you know, to get that from your group, right? Yeah. So even if you're a part of, whether you're alpha, beta, or whatever, but, you know, getting some emotional sensitivity and empathy and caring from your peer group, it's probably more difficult for boys. I don't know. I've never been a male.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure, because it's like, you know, and I'm very impressed with how the younger generations have adapted to increasing tolerance of homosexuality.
Yes.
Right.
That is a great example.
And like when I was a boy growing up, and like, I don't think most people felt like bigoted, but it was like, you know, to just be like, oh, you're gay, stop being gay.
Yeah.
It was just what you said.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think looking back on it, like, it took a while for me to be like, yeah, you know what, that wasn't cool.
No, it's harmful.
But it also was like, I know what was in my heart, and I think what was in my friends' hearts at the time we were doing that. And it was like, it wasn't like hateful. It just was kind of ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I think kids have adjusted, and they're not quite like that today. And they're a lot more accepting of people in general. But like, there's still sort of this, like, as you're dealing with your own identity and who am I, and like what kind of, you know, mate am I gonna find, and all of that, you know, you don't know if I'm like, if me like opening up and sharing something is if that's rejected, like me being vulnerable is like rejected by my friend, or, you know, they're like, they go even more vulnerable, and you're like, oh my God, what did I do?
Right? I'm not ready for this.
I'm not ready for this.
Yes.
You know, I think there's just, it's really hard. It's hard with boys.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because it was something I heard recently that, you know, when, again, you know, we are more accepting of, you know, people who are not cisgender or non-binary, or who, you know, are homosexual. And speaking specifically of boys and men, if you're not following those norms and you're, giving a good example of like, okay, are my friends going to accept this? And then if they do, are they going to lean all in and I'm not ready for it because I haven't built competencies around this. It's not in my repertoire for this friendship or this situation. But there might also be an interpretation that, and it's more accepting, but that if you're more emotive, potentially you're not this masculine straight man. Right. And I don't know how I'm not a man again. Like you know what? To be honest, people have asked me or said things like, oh, related to me being a lesbian because I'm just comfortable with who the hell I am. Because of the Subaru.
The Subaru and the feel hockey.
Yeah, the feel hockey, how I dress. But I honestly could give a damn. I'm not changing nothing, right? But I feel like men try to avoid being characterized as someone who might not be a straight man if they're truly a straight man. Am I right? Or am I misinterpreting this?
Yeah, I think again, there's a window like when you're a young man and you are like not only like looking for a romantic partner, but like also trying to gauge where you are in the spectrum of being a potential mate. Yeah, where like that means a lot more than it does when you get to my age and like if someone thinks I'm gay, it's like more power to you. Like I don't, it doesn't bother me, But I think when you're like 19, like that can be, again, and I'm coming from the perspective of someone who was like always identified as like obviously straight. But still, and that's what's wild, right? Is like I always identify as obviously straight, and still like as a kid, you're like,
is that a category? Obviously straight.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like for me, I never was.
Yes.
Like,
gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, I remember, sort of feeling like, I don't know, just like if somebody was like questioning
you'd be like, okay,
my sexuality, it was just like I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It puts you off guard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this actually talking about friendships and, this isn't household level, but, our community level, the people you interact with on a day-to-day basis where you have more personal relationships. So within our local circles, so thinking about work, friendships, sports, parenting groups, how do you see men showing up for each other? And this is something we've talked about a little bit. Do you think men have spaces where they can be open or supported, or is that still something that's missing? And, my interpretation is that like when I talk about things that my girlfriends and I talk about, even friends who are, casual friends, I play sports with them or, they're coworkers I'm not as close with. We get pretty intimate, right? We're pretty open, honest. There's, it's everyone's a support network, not in a way to scare them off, but I think there's a easier way to have an emotional connection as a woman based on some of the things I've heard you mention. But I'm just curious. Maybe again, I'm misinterpreting.
Yeah, I mean,
this.
The stereotypes are true.
Okay.
Like we, when I'm not playing hockey right now, but I was playing hockey, playing baseball, both on teams, and then like didn't pick up soccer. So and then I ski and do other things and like play golf. I get together with like. My dudes, we're talking about the sport we're playing, the game we watched or the game that's upcoming that we're going to watch. We do like, if someone a little better, it's like, hey, how your kids? Like, how's coaching soccer going? Like, you guys get up to your camp, what, like stuff like that. But it's still, it's fairly cursory. Like we're not getting into, especially with like a more casual acquaintance, we'd never get into like, man, I'm feeling really down because, someone in my family's sick and my job isn't going well. Like, we don't talk like that. Now, there are friends that I have that I do feel comfortable in the right situation, having those types of conversations. But I would never seek that out. I think that's a big thing is like, it's
but you
not.
wouldn't call up your buddy and be like,
I wouldn't call him up, right?
Had a bad day. My mom's really sick.
Yeah.
Or,
like, hey, I just need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So like if we were like, hanging out and it's like you get harder and harder it gets harder and harder to like find time where you can like hang out with friends, you know, with all the things you have going on.
Totally. Adulting.
Yeah. But, you know, so if that happened to happen and had the opportunity, I might like open up and share a little bit, but like, I'm not going to seek it out.
Yeah. Yeah. That just kind of surprises me. Even if it was something like devastating and you really needed the support, right? I mean, I know you would probably seek it with your most intimate relationships, your wife, your parents.
Well, I'll tell you this
sister.
though. After, you know, so a year ago was when my grandfather passed away, and my aunt passed away in like the same within a week of each other.
Yeah, it was a hard stretch,
and it wasn't. I mean, it really wasn't all that long after your dad had passed away, and just, you know, a lot of stuff happened, and you know, and then more stuff happened in the spring, and
yeah, we got hit hard.
Yeah, it was just kind of one thing after another.
Rough go, yeah.
And I did get to a point where, I realized that it was good for me to just be kind of open, and I didn't like belabor it, and I wasn't like, you know, I try not to be like an emotional burden on someone, right? Nobody like,
hey, you're listening. Okay. You have an hour.
Yeah. But like, I also was just, you know, when someone would ask how you doing, I'd be like, you know, actually, I'm not really doing that great. Like, I got all this stuff going on. Like, you know, I think things are going to be okay. I think we'll figure it out. But like, it's been really rough.
And do you think that did like either help you just feel better, like help your emotional state, and or B, give you a little bit of respite from the whirlwind, meaning like people were better able to appreciate where you're showing up, how you're showing up, what you're capable of in that time.
Yeah, I think it took a weight off my shoulders when I was a little more open, because, you know, it did, you know, first of all, in situations where like, you know, maybe I wasn't showing up at work the way I wanted to, or like I wasn't, you know, able to connect with people as much for a period of time. It gave some context as to why, right?
Yeah.
But
so people
the bigger thing was, it really opened my eyes to like how much everyone goes through grief, and like they grieve in different ways, but I have actually been lucky enough to not lose that many people that were close to me. So even though I am no spring chicken, I am still a relative novice when it comes to that type of grief in my life. And it really opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, like I remember when, you know, friends were losing parents, or, you know, other terrible losses. And I was like, I tried to be sympathetic, but I couldn't quite like empathize. And then it was like, wow, I know what they were going through now.
Yeah, you get a deeper level.
You got to go through it yourself to really understand it.
Yeah. So
which sucks.
Do you now have a little more empathy for me?
Not you, but everyone else.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah. All right, well, this is actually a good segue to talk about, you know, our more intimate family household situation. So inside our own home, how do you think you model masculinity and emotional expression? So we have a son, a teenager.
Pull-ups and push-ups.
And so, you know, how does it affect how you raise your son? What do you hope your son learns about what it means to be male? You know, what lessons have you had to teach him? So we've been through, I mean, he has memories and understands the Me Too movement. You know, he's seen some of the political things that have been going on affecting women's rights. And, you know, he's not an emotive person. He's definitely, you know,
he's pretty stoic.
A pretty typical stoic man, a young man at this point. But yeah, I mean, what do you think you've done well? What do you think you could do better? I don't know, any and all the things. And then you could even reflect, we're going deep here. You could even reflect on your relationship with your dad, but that might need to be a whole nother episode.
We
love you, Tim, but
we could go to any level of depth in this conversation. Well, I think that, you know, sometimes I think this is kind of silly when I reflect on it, but it still means something to me. Like I think about, you know, I'm carrying my last name for my family, and you know, we have like
mine has died off, by the way.
the Sear, yeah, which
And it's probably less common.
right. So, but this is the thing.
Sorry, I didn't want to make it about me, but
Well, no, I mean, it's one of the reasons why when you think about it, it's a little silly, right?
no, but
like,
it's still important.
But you know, I think like the Sears, we know the Sears family history from the time they first came to North America, like in the 16th century, right?
Which is really cool.
And so we have this like long, you know, history. I guess it was the 17th century, but we have this long history of the family name, and it means something to like, you know, carry that name and have my son carry it, right? And I always looked at like, you know, I romanticized the story a little bit, but like I had a lot of, I got to know my great grandfather a little bit. My grandfather is still alive. My dad is still alive. And I just see a series of men who, you know, kind of came from humble origins, who busted their ass to make their lives better and, give their children opportunities that they themselves didn't have. And that means a lot to me. And I think that I've been doing that and doing an okay job with that with my kids. And I don't necessarily need my son to tell himself the same story that I told myself. I want him to be an individual and live his own life, but I also want him to understand why that's important to me.
Yeah.
And that is a version of being a man that I think is a good thing in society.
Yeah, you can take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. So I think, you know, that's one thing.
Okay.
And then I think that like, it kind of, you know, I said it a little bit earlier, but like, you know, again, going back to like the 3 S's, stoicism, strength, and self-reliance, those are very good attributes to have, but you can overdo it.
Yes.
And you can be so, and I think that's what you see in a lot of this like toxic masculinity stuff, where it's just like, you know, I don't need anybody and I'm a lone wolf and blah, you know, it's like, you know, it's not a way to live a full life as a complete human being. I think it is, you only have part of the equation if you take those attributes and you put all of your chips in that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And it overpowers, overruns, you dominate. Yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, I think the final piece of that, because I could talk all day about it, but I'll try to keep it concise, is respect for women and understanding like, you know, your role in our family as the mother, the matriarch, you have a great career in your own right. You know, you're an athlete and you are a creative person, and you have.
Are you flattering me?
Well, you know, you're a pretty incredible person, right?
Oh,
and I think
you
know, to me, I always thought that like, you know, the pinnacle of like a male attitude towards a woman is like, you know, we should be protective and we should be, you know, we should do what we can to uplift and support the women in our life to live full, complete lives. Right. And
yeah, just show some respect.
Yeah. And so I think like, that's something, you know, that I see from him all the time is I think he's very respectful. And
well, it's actually one of the things that made me think about this topic, and then, you know, I've other things bubbled up, but I thought it was pretty impressive that earlier, I think it was maybe even over a week ago, he had a very respectful conversation with his younger sister about, you know, transportation to school and the fight over when to leave, and him making a conscientious decision about what was going to be safest for, you know, because he's driving now, what is safest for him as far as the driver and the timing for getting to school, even though there was a lot of heavy pushback. And he very respectfully brought that conversation up. He stayed regulated. He was conscientious. And yeah, there's moments. And, you know, his little sister's a little volatile sometimes, and she certainly was at this time of day. And he could have reacted and been pushy and more dominant and demanding, and he was not. And I think that goes to show that some of your role modeling and, you know, educating, cultivating his manhood has been effective.
So far, so good.
Yes. So, all right. Well, good stuff. So I'm curious what you are still chewing on from all of this discussion.
There's just, I mean, there's so much on this topic. I think we could keep going and
there
going.
There could be a part two.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think of like, you know, actually one of the things I was thinking about was like, you know, the ads I was getting on Instagram, like,
oh yeah,
for like years, it was like all like, it was all like, you know, workout gear, creatine, like boner pills, you know, just, and then it started to slowly.
Well, what about like the half naked women?
Yeah. It was all like,
okay.
Beautiful women doing squats all day, every day. And then it kind of like morphed into like boner pills and like hair loss medication.
Because you put your age into the system.
Now it's just like, now it's just like I get videos of like dogs and like they've given up. They're like, this guy, he's over the hill. Like we're not gonna bother with him.
He doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny. It's like that whole thing where I do understand it as an aging man. You know, where like I still feel pretty good in my skin, but like, you know, you lose your fastball a little bit, like, and you
way
like
to circle back to the baseball analogy.
Yeah,
and
you want
to,
literally and figuratively, and you know, you want to recapture it because it feels so good, you know, and it does feel good, but like
you know,
that's
you
not
do like
everything.
That macho pose too. I don't know if I ever do a macho pose ever in my life. I mean, do I need to do a macho pose more?
It's part of. When they gave me my man card.
Yeah, you got the macho pose. Like when you came out, it's like a reflexive action.
Yeah.
I taught my students about primitive reflexes. It must be a male primitive reflex, the macho flex, and it just like carries over if you stay macho. Okay. Well, was there anything else you're chewing on, or is that's a good?
Yeah.
All right. And then what feels relatively ordinary?
I think it's. Again, it's like this is who we are, right? I think there's like this,
just human beings.
You know, I think like the yin and the yang, right, is an interesting thing. Like that's not from our culture, it's from Asian culture, but it's you know, the idea that there's masculine force and there's feminine force, and I think really the whole point of like the yin and the yang is like these forces balance each other into a harmonious whole, right? Versus like, you know, the yang dominates the yin and it's gonna kick everybody's ass, like you know, like the you know, the Pete Hegseth thing, like F-A-F-O, like screw you, man, like so yeah, I think, you know, it's just, I think there's always this push pull in society, and you know, sometimes what you see is like a swing in one way or the other, and you know, swings one way and it scares the crap out of people who think it should be the other way, so then they swing it too far the other way,
and then we're just trying to pick up the pieces.
Well,
I'm curious, as your wife, and I know you pretty well at this point, but this is something that I wonder, like, what goes on in your brain on this topic. But you know, you're not someone who is prone to, you know, carrying on or being emotive, right? And I wouldn't say you're overly stoic, but you're definitely just, okay, I'm going to process my emotions internally. You know, you do some things that I think are a nice way of finding balance with your emotions, but you're not someone, even to me, to be like, okay, babe, I need to talk this out right now. And
first we're going to try throwing things, and then there's like, you know.
Yes, you go through these stages of processing, and
you
certainly become more escalated and a little unbearable before you're like, okay, I'm gonna talk this through. But you're not gonna, you know, shed a great amount of tears over it, or, you know, be weeping around. And I don't expect that. And it's probably because you have this messaging that that's not what men do. And, you know, probably can see that with your close male family members. But is there ever a part of you, like, if that could come to that point where, like, instead of the throwing things or ignoring things or being angry, that instead of that, you're like, okay, I just need to process with you. Can I have a hug? And I'm going to cry it out. Like, could you ever do that with me, or maybe your son, or like, I don't know, a friend? Like, I just need a hug real quick, man.
Probably not, but yeah.
I was just wondering.
Never know.
I mean, hey, I think it's great when you can.
Yeah.
And
but
if you're that type of person,
if you want to put on the movie Miracle, the tears will flow.
I know. Actually, just for the audience, the handful of times I have seen Karl cry, it's been, I would say, 90% about sports.
Because I've only had 2 kids.
Okay. Well, that's why I did a percentage, just a small percentage, and that.
Yes, when the Red Sox won the World Series and when my kids were born.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
but there were some other times related to sports too.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, that was a great episode. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you joining us today on this interesting episode.
Yeah, and by the way, we do have an email address now.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, relativelyordinary@gmail.com.
Oh, that's
And
a great email
relatively _ ordinary on Instagram.
Nice. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Find us there, follow us there, and send us any communication if you're interested.
Yeah. Let us know what you think.
Nice. Okay. Great
Right, good stuff.
episode, babe.